Welcome to Fox Tales Folklore, where we explore new stories and tell old tales. We are building a community through the ancient art of storytelling. We share our stories, and we hope to inspire you to stand up, sing out, to find your voice. Our stories shape our world. Your story can change the world. Join the chorus and fall in love with the world again and all of its possibilities. Roar! Today we are celebrating bears with an episode of Bear Tales. We're going to begin with a story I learned from Joe Bruchac, an Abenaki storyteller and friend of mine. This story is from the Iroquois tradition, and among the Iroquois it's rude to talk while the storyteller's talking. Oh, excuse me. It's also rude to go to sleep in the middle of a story. So to make sure you're awake, make sure you're listening, every now and then the storyteller stops in the middle of the story and says, "Ho!" as if to say, "Are you with me? Are you listening?" And when the storyteller says, "Ho!" you say, "Hey!" as if to say, "Yes, I'm with you. I'm a very good listener." So whenever I say ho, you say hey. Let's practice. Ho. Now don't forget, it comes up again later. Also, this story has two songs in the middle of it. And they're very simple. If you're listening, if you like, you can join in. You can sing along. Ho? You didn't forget already, did you? Ho? In the beginning, when the world was new, all the creatures lived together in peace and harmony, and they could all speak the same language. Now, in this beginning time, Bear was walking through the forest. Bear was feeling all big and bad and proud about himself. Ho? Bear was saying, "I am Bear. I can do anything. I am big and strong and tough and mean. I can do anything." Ho! While Bear was walking along, underneath the leaves, there was a little chipmunk. And Chipmunk heard this talk, and Chipmunk began to laugh. "Hey, who's that laughing at me?" Chipmunk said, You think you're so big and bad? You cannot do anything." "Yes, I can. I am Bear. I can do anything." "No, you can't." "Yes, I can." "No, yes, I can." "All right, if you can do anything, prove it." Ho? Hey, Bear said, "All right, you name it. Anything. I'll do it." "Ooh, this is going to be good," thought Chipmunk. "I got it. If you can do anything, I want you to tell the sun not to rise." "Ooh, I'm Bear. I can do that. If I tell the sun not to come up, it better not come up." Ho? Chipmunk said, "I gotta see this." And the two of them went to the top of a tall hill. And first, they sat down facing the west to watch the sun go down. Then they turned to the east to watch the sun not come up. Now, somewhere in the middle of the night, Bear got kind of nervous, wondering whether or not he really could stop the sun from rising. Ho? Hey. But Bear knew something maybe you know. Maybe you don't, but don't worry, I'll tell you. Bear knew that sometimes, if you sing the right song, that song has magic, and that song will give you its power. But Bear didn't know the right song. So he made one up. He began to sing, "The sun will not come up. The sun will not come up. I, Bear, command it. The sun will not come up." And as he sang, it gave him more confidence. Can you join in? "The sun will not come up. The sun will not come up. I, Bear, command it. The sun will not come up." Can you sing it like a bear? "The sun will not come up. The sun will not come up. I, Bear, command it. The sun will not come up." Now, Chipmunk heard that song, and Chipmunk got a little nervous. Maybe Bear really can stop the sun from rising. No, he can't. Maybe if I sing the right song, it will help me too. But he didn't know the right song, so he made one up. He sang, "The sun is going to rise. The sun is going to rise. Bear is being foolish. The sun is going to rise." Can you sing that with me? "The sun is going to rise. The sun is going to rise. Bear is being foolish. The sun is going to rise. Can you sing it like a chipmunk? The sun is going to rise. The sun is going to rise. Bear is being foolish. The sun is going to rise. Now here's the tricky part. Can you sing both of those songs at the same time while I tell the rest of the story? The sun will not come up. The sun is going to rise. The sun will not come up. The sun is going to rise. I, Bear, command it. Bear is being foolish. The sun will not come up. The sun is going to rise. And they both kept singing. Louder and louder. Ho. All night long. Ho. And it just happened to be the longest night of the year. They sang louder and louder and louder and louder until finally the first few fingers of light came over the horizon. I told you, the sun did come up. Whoom! But Bear brought his great big paw down on top of Chipmunk. And Bear said, you're right. The sun did rise, but you will never see another sunrise because I am going to eat you. Uh-oh. Chipmunk knew he was in big trouble. Now, pause and think about that for a moment. How many of you ever faced that kind of trouble? Chipmunk knew that this will often get you out of trouble when this was caused more trouble. Chipmunk thought fast. He said, oh, you caught me. You caught me. You should go ahead and eat me. But before you eat me, could you lift your paw just a little? I can hardly breathe under here. So I can say a little prayer and I can tell everyone how brave you are, how strong you are, that Bear's the mightiest animal in the forest, and then you can eat me. Bear kind of liked that idea. His ego is as big as the rest of his body. So Bear lifted his paw just a little, and when out went Chipmunk, and he took off running. Ho! Faster than that. Ho! 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 Chipmunk ran so fast, he almost got away. But Bear was faster. Ho! Faster. Ho! 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 Just as Chipmunk dove into his hole, his burrow, Bear reached out his long arm, his big paw, his sharp claws, and he scratched Chipmunk right down the middle of his back. Ow! But Chipmunk got away. Oh, but those gashes, those scratches were so big. But don't worry about Chipmunk. Chipmunk's grandma was a medicine woman and taught him which plants are medicine and which are poisonous. And from underground, he could grab the root bulbs and he could pull the leaves down. And he shredded those leaves and he made a little poultice. That's a Band-Aid made out of herbs. And he put the poultice on his back. Oh, that felt a little bit better. Now, how many of you are sick, you like to sleep? It's a good idea because that's when you heal, that's when you grow. Chipmunk hurt so bad, he slept all winter long, as he still does to this day. Can you say hibernation? But when Chipmunk woke up in the spring, the scars, they had healed. Well, he had scars, but the wounds had healed. But now he had these stripes down the middle of his back. Have you seen a chipmunk? Those stripes are still there. Those stripes are there to remind us of this story, to remind us, you better be careful who you make fun of, or you might be foolish in the end. Ho? Hey, that's how that story goes. Thank you for listening. A song for every story, and if not, I make one up. But this is a traditional bear song. It goes like this. Inni itchy chayo, inni itchy chayo, inni itchy chayo, inni itchy chayo, inni ya, inni io, inni ya, inni io, inni ya, inni itchy chayo. There you go. Next, I would like to tell a traditional Cherokee story. This is a story that I first found in a book by James Mooney where he interviewed John Ross, a traditional Cherokee storyteller, I think about 150 years ago. Well, more recently, I met John Ross's great-great-granddaughter or niece, a distant relative, Gail Ross, who recently published a book of Cherokee stories based on those earlier and older stories. This is a story called Bear and Rabbit. Bear went to the powwow. He went to the dance grounds. And he really liked the way that Rabbit danced. He really liked the way that Rabbit sang. And Bear, he wanted to show his appreciation. He wanted to show his gratitude. So Bear invited Rabbit to come over for a feast. And Rabbit was happy to oblige. He would never turn down a free meal. Well, that night, Bear decided to cook some beans and corn. And those beans, they had simmered in a clay pot over a fire all day long. And when Rabbit arrived, Bear was getting ready to serve the beans, and like any good cook, he had a little bite. These beans are a little dry, said Bear. These beans, they could use a little grease, a little bit of oil. That would make them a little moist and they would taste better. And then Bear did a simply astounding thing. Bear pulled out a knife and cut into the side of his own skin. But instead of blood, out came bear grease, bear fat. And he put a little bit of that fat in the pot of beans, and he ran his hand over his side, and he was healed. Rabbit didn't believe what he saw. Now, Rabbit was the kind of guy who thought, I can do that. If you can do it, I can do it. I can do it better. He thought that was amazing magic. And the beans did taste better. So at the end of the meal, Rabbit said, thank you very much for having me over. Thank you for these delicious beans. I would like to return the favor. I would like to invite you to my house. Will you come over to my house for a feast tomorrow? And I'll cook supper for you. Well, Bear was never one to turn down a free meal. So the very next night, Bear went to Rabbit's house. And just like Bear the day before, Rabbit had cooked beans over a fire all day long. And just as Rabbit was getting ready to serve those beans, oh, these are a little dry. And Rabbit picked up a knife and sliced into his side. But as soon as he did, blood gushed out. Rabbit flapped about and fell to the ground. Bear leapt up, and Bear luckily is a medicine man. Actually, the Cherokee tell an old story about how the first medicine man was trained by Bear. And you might think that's an old folk tale. You might think that that's an old folk tale or fairy tale, but the truth is, we now know that bears will eat certain herbs when they were sick. Instead of ethnobotany, the human uses of plants, Jane Goodall, one of my heroes, is a pioneer in zoobotany, studying how animals use plants. So I believe that Bear was indeed the first medicine man. And when Bear saw his friend flopping about and bleeding so badly, Bear leapt up. And as you should always do when there's a wound, you stop the bleeding. Zoop! He covered it over with his big paw and applied direct pressure, and the bleeding stopped. And Bear sat with his friend Rabbit until Rabbit felt much better. Rabbit had recovered fully. And Bear said, Rabbit, you have your gifts. You have the things that you are good at, dancing and singing for one. You are a much better singer and dancer than I will ever be. And I have my gifts. I am the medicine man, the healer in the village. You should not try to do the things that you are not so good at. Stick to the things you know best. Good advice that Bear gave his friend. But do you think that Rabbit listened? Oh, I don't know. I think Rabbit went on with his mischief, if you ask me. And I'll sing that song again. Once more, the bear song. Can you sing it with me this time? Inni itchy chayo, inni itchy chayo, inni itchy chayo, inni itchy chayo, inni ya, inni ayo, inni ya, inni ayo, inni ya, inni itchy chayo. Next, we're going to travel back in time to meet one of America's pioneering naturalists. You may know him as Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Meriwether Lewis's mother was an ethnobotanist, a medicine woman. She knew which herbs would heal you in the mountains of Virginia where the Cherokee once lived, and some of us still do. This is a story from the journals of Lewis and Clark, mainly from the Journal of Meriwether Lewis. And it's about an encounter with a grizzly bear in the Rocky Mountains more than 200 years ago. We'll let Meriwether Lewis tell the story. Camped with the Mandan as they warned us about the yellow-haired bear. the great white bear, the grizzly-haired bear, grizzly bear. They told us they never go hunting grizzly bear unless they have at least 10 men. And as a rite of passage, a young man will count coup on a grizzly bear, and then the bear will chase him. And if he survives, he's a brave man. And if he doesn't, well, we're cleaning up the weaker and slower of the race. Well, after listening and writing 2 pages of warnings in my journal, I discounted it all with one flippant sentence: but the grizzly bear has never met the Kentucky long rifle. Finally, the snow begins to melt. We loaded the keel boat with all the goods that we had found thus far and sent it back to St. Louis. We turned and headed upstream in our canoes. And again, I remember writing in my journal that DeSoto, Hudson, or Captain Cook could not be as proud of their men as I was of my humble crew as we headed off the maps and into the unknown. Now, the ice in the river had just begun to break, and a herd of buffalo crossing the river, breaking through the ice, several of them would drown, and they would wash up onto the shore of an island. And on one island, there was a huge rotting carcass of a dead buffalo, and eating that carcass was a grizzly bear. Now, because we'd been warned by the Mandan, we sent 6 men. 2 of them hid in the bushes along the trail, while 4 of them quietly crept forward. I'm not sure if a twig snapped or a leaf rustled, or maybe the wind shifted direction, but the bear stopped eating. It stood up and it began to lunge towards these men. Kablam! Kablam! 4 shots into the heart, the chest, point blank range, killed the bear, right? No, it just got his attention. Roar! The bear began to chase them. They took off running. But remember, 2 more men hiding in the bushes. When the first 4 ran past, the other 2 leapt out. Again, kablam! Kablam! 2 shots plus 4, 6 shots into the heart and lungs. Kills the bear, right? No, just made him angrier. Roar! The bear starts chasing the other 2. They hightail it to the leeward side of the island where the river has carved a huge cliff. Put yourself in their moccasins. A bear on your tail, 20 feet to the river below. They didn't hesitate. Wah! Sploosh! Into the river down below. The bear runs to the edge of the cliff. Roar! Sploosh! Into the river down below. Those 2 men cross the shallow leeward side, and they're running along the shore, the bear hot on their trail. And do you know a grizzly bear can run as fast as a thoroughbred horse? As the bear was gaining on them, out steps George Druyere. Now, a commander is not supposed to have favorites, but George Druyere was half Shawnee and half French. Sokokowiya had served us well as a translator in 2 very important moments. But George Druyere spoke sign language, so he could speak with every tribe we met along the way. George Druyere was a principal hunter. I remember one time Clark wrote in his journal, "I went hunting with Druyere today. I killed 2 deer. Druyere killed 4 deer, 2 buffalo, and an elk. The men ate 10 pounds of meat a day, and who provided most of it? George Druyere. George Druyere knew bear. When the bear came rushing towards him, he did not hightail and run. When the bear stood up, he did not fire. When the bear opened its huge maw, about to crush his head, then and only then, he lowers his musket into the mouth of the bear, kablam, and blows away the brains. And the bear fell dead. And we skinned that bear. We feasted on that bear. Do you love spare ribs? You'd love some bear ribs. Bear grease, if you mix it with the right herbs, repels mosquitoes. The bear claws, we made a necklace and gave as a present to the president. Also, while camping with the Shoshone, I learned a bear song. It goes a little like this. Ini chichayo, ini chichayo, ini chichayo, ini chichayo, ini ya, ini ayo, ini ya, ini ayo, ini ya, ini chichayo. This next story happened to me when I was working in the mountains of North Carolina. No, I have to admit. I learned the story from Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy published a collection of fables, and it happened to Tolstoy in Russia about 150, Tolstoy learned it from La Fontaine. La Fontaine collected this story maybe 300 years ago. This story is one he told to the King of France. And so this story happened in the mountains near the French Alps about La Fontaine learned it from Aesop. This story happened in ancient Greece more than 2,000 years. This story is from the Panchatantra, the oldest collection of stories in the world. Stories that are 7,000 years old. This story happened in the mountains of India. 7,000, This story happened to me. When I was in college, I had the greatest summer job. I worked in the mountains of North Carolina at this wonderful summer camp. Now, not only did the camp hire me for the whole summer, but I would usually go a couple of weeks before camp started, and they would hire me to help clear the trails and get ready for camp. And there was a counselor there, and his name was David Sharp, and everyone knew him as Dancing Bear. And that's actually where my name, Fox, was given to me by my friend, David Sharp. And we loved to go hiking. One of our favorite places to hike was along the Appalachian Trail. Now, I've not done the entire trail, 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine, but I have hiked chunks of it all the way along. I've started at the bottom and also hiked up in Maine. And I have to say, of the portions I've hiked, which is more than half, maybe 2/3, one of my favorite spots is called Beauty Spot. And it is along the boundary between Tennessee to the west and North Carolina to the east. It's called Beauty Spot because when you're hiking along that crest, there are actually certain places on the mountain where you can see 2 or 3 states on every side of you. You can see into Virginia, and on a really clear day, maybe even into West Virginia and Georgia to the south. Well, I might be imagining that. But it is truly one of the most beautiful spots in the world. And Beauty Spot, aptly named. Well, on this beautiful spring day, could you imagine? I was hiking along with my best friend, Dave, and we are talking about the sunshine and the fresh air and looking forward to a great summer at camp. And as we roar, out came a bear. Now, I saw the bear first, so I took off running. And my friend Dave, he saw the bear too late. And so he fell to the ground and pretended that he was dead. Because everyone knows a bear will not eat dead meat. I climbed up into a tree where I felt a little bit safer. And from the top of the tree, I could see the bear came right over to my friend, David. David laid perfectly still and pretended he was dead. The bear began to nudge him. He hardly moved. The bear began to sniff and smell his head. And at that moment, very wisely, Dave held his breath. So the bear thought he was dead. Now, everyone knows a bear will not eat dead meat. And so the bear turned and walked away. Now, when I saw the bear was far enough away that I felt safe, I climbed down out of the tree. And I walked over to my friend Dave, and you can admit it, you've been there. Have you ever been really scared and you didn't want to admit you were scared? And so you kind of play it off, you make a little joke, put yourself in my shoes. I said, "Hey, Dave, that bear, he looked like he was whispering in your ear." What did the bear whisper in your ear? Well, Dave got up and he brushed himself off and he said, "The bear? What did he say to me?" He said, "Do not trust a friend 1 inch if he deserts you in a pinch." Now the truth is, well, let me ask, did that story really happen to me as I tell it? Not exactly. But have you ever been dissed by a friend? Hopefully you're not the friend who dissed your friend. Maybe you have. And the truth is, you could tell that story either way because we've all been in those shoes where we really needed someone and maybe they let us down, or your friend really needed you and you let them down. You could retell that story as if you were there. Where do you go hiking? Who do you like to go hiking with? Maybe instead of a bear, it could be a snake or a tiger. I actually rewrote this story once about a rat eating butter on the kitchen table and crawling across my mother when she was a little girl, and it was my Aunt Clarabelle who abandoned my mother. My mother says, that sounds just like Aunt Clarabelle. You could rewrite the story as if it happened to you. How would you tell the story? Because we know not every story is true, but there's truth in every story. There's so much we can learn from a bear. If we study what bears eat, their diet is actually very similar to ours. They eat a lot more fruits and nuts and roots and tubers than they do meat, though meat is an important part of their diet. And even with the meat, they eat more small rodents than they do great big deer. A bear has trouble catching a deer. Well, there's much we can learn from a bear. And the medicinal plants that they eat. There's new research that has shown us that bears have a very wide use of plants, that certain plants they only eat when they have certain sicknesses. There's much we can learn from a bear. Hibernation. Scientists today are studying bears' fat and bears' blood, especially when they sleep, how their metabolism changes, and we're hoping to apply that so that when we travel to outer space, to Mars and the stars beyond, maybe we can help humans switch into a hibernative state so they can survive those long journeys. What could you learn from a bear? What are your favorite bear stories? Bears live on most of the continents and most of the world, and many cultures tell stories about bears. Learn one and send me a link to your YouTube video, and maybe we'll put you on the next episode of Fox Tales Folklore. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fox Tales Folklore. Next time, invite your friends. And maybe you can send us a link to you telling one of your favorite folk tales, and we'll use it on an upcoming episode. Join our choir to fall in love with the world and all of its possibilities.